Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. Welcome to the immersive Arabic course that you've registered for. And we hopefully within the next 6 months, we will be going through a number of classes. And this session is to just introduce you to what the course is, what the course is about, what you should aim to get from the course, and also tips for success, also how to do very well in a course like this. My name is Jibril Alau. I've been teaching Arabic for about 15 years now. I started as a student myself, learned Arabic in 2001 with a grammar-based methodology of teaching, of learning. And in 2002, I went to Syria for a few months to immerse myself in the language, and I learned Arabic poetry and literature there. And since 2005, I've been teaching Arabic language. I set up the Study Arabic in Africa Institute in 2020 to sort of teach Arabic to busy people who can dedicate 2 to 3 hours a week over a period of 6 months, and then go on a 2-week excursion program to ensure that everything they've learned is basically established and practiced enough to make it pretty much second nature. So why learn Arabic via immersion? If you think about it, language came first before grammar rules. And as a result of that, we like to focus on enabling and empowering the students to be able to use the language first. And once and only when they're comfortable in using the language, then we mention the rules of the language. We don't totally do away with the rules, but we don't start with the rules, and we don't make the rules an impediment to learning. So as a result of that, if you also think about it regarding your mother tongue, with the way you learned your mother tongue, you learned that via immersion. You learned your mother tongue not via someone telling you some rules regarding how to, what the subject is, what the object is, what case it is, whether it's accusative, genitive. Nobody taught you that with your mother tongue, which is your most expressive language. As such, we want to also teach people the Arabic language in such a natural way, whereby they first learn how to use the language. And in learning how to use the language first, they can then build on top of that a knowledge of, maybe the grammar or maybe other further sciences regarding the language. And we believe, of course, this is the most natural way to teach the language, which is you start with teaching and immersing students in the language, letting them use the language, and then subsequently, when required, you mention some of the grammar rules which they already know how to use. You mention that to them so that they can correct themselves if and when they make mistakes. The other reason why we do this is because if you think about it, the actual science of Nahw and Sarf, which is grammar and morphology, were introduced to preserve the language, not to use to teach the language, but to preserve the language. The famous story of Abu al-Aswad ad-Du'ali, who was one of the students of Imam Ali alayhi salam, and he was in a situation where he was sitting down in his garden one day, and his daughter came to him, and his daughter asked to the father, he asked the question, Ma ajmalu sama? And the father replied, An-nujum. And if you look at it, Ma ajmalu sama, which from this daughter's perspective, she asked the same question. She said, Ma ajmalu sama. And the father repeated the same answer. He said, An-nujum. Now, why did that become a problem? The third time, the daughter said to the father, No, ata'ajjabu ila sama. I'm expressing amazement at the skies. And then the father thought, oh my God, because what the daughter was asking is ma ajmalu sama, which means what is the most beautiful thing in the skies? But what she really wanted to say is ma ajmalas sama, which is how beautiful is the sky. So just by virtue of changing the vowel, the meaning changed. And Abu Aswad ad-Du'ali, he was very concerned at this, that his own daughter did not understand the Arabic language or made such a grave mistake in the Arabic language, which led to a lack of understanding between them. So he went to Imam Ali alayhi salam and he said to him that I think we should write down the rules of how we understand Arabic now so that future generations will not lose our understanding and will understand Arabic the way we understand it now. And more importantly, they will be able to understand the Quran and not misunderstand it. So, as you can hear from that story, the whole purpose, the main purpose of bringing Arabic as a language was for preservation of the language. And of course, when you think about it, if this whole circle is the whole entire Arabic language, how much of this do you actually think is the rules, consist of the rules? Some of you might think this is 20% or 30%. In reality, it's a small percentage of the entire language, which is why there are always exceptions to every single rule that you learn in the language. And of course, as any language that is rich, like the Arabic language, rules are just a way of getting you into the language. The more you get into the language, you realize a lot of exceptions and you realize a lot of, which is why we try to teach you not only via the prism of the rules, but mainly via learning the language itself. And once you are able to use the language, we mention the rules so that the rules do not become a pre-thought when you use the language, which brings us to the next point. One of the biggest problems for people who learn Arabic via learning the rules of grammar and morphology is that they end up in a state known as paralysis by analysis. What does that mean? It means that because of all of the rules that they've learned in the language, when it's time to produce the language by speaking it, they're not able to do that effortlessly because their brain is really analyzing and thinking of all of these different rules, and as a result cannot really say, uridu an adhaba ila al-masjidi. Cannot really say, I want to go to the mosque very easily. They have to think of so many rules. Am I using this? Am I using past tense, present tense? However, when you learn the language through immersion, you start using the language from day one so that your brain doesn't go through this paralysis by analysis trap that happens to people who learn the language via grammar. And finally, of course, we have a role model in the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as far as how to learn the Arabic language. He didn't learn it via rules, and he learned it via immersion. And we try to, in following that role model, teach others this language via immersion, via creating environments by which they can learn and speak and use the Arabic language. So that by doing that, hearing, listening, and then trying to repeat and trying to substitute sentences, trying to substitute words in a sentence. By doing that regularly, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, we teach the people the Arabic language, and they become adept at using the language from that perspective. So that's why we teach and why it's better to learn via immersion as opposed to via the grammar method that is prevalent in many institutions worldwide. So if you're going to do a course like this, and if you're going to study with us, what are tips and tips that we can give you, tools that you can use for success? So if you imagine a child that learns his or her mother tongue via immersion, what is one thing you see about children when they use the language? They have zero fear or inhibition in using the language. They're not afraid of being wrong. They're not afraid of making a mistake. They're not afraid of being laughed at. They're not afraid of sounding ridiculous. They just use the language, say whatever it is they want to say whatever it is they think, how they think about it. That is so important in learning language via immersion. You need to not be afraid of making mistakes. Just say what comes to your mind. Even if you're wrong, that's what the teacher is there for, to correct you. And when you hear the correct sentence or the correct utilization of the language, you just correct yourself. So you should not have any fear when you're asked any questions in this course. And this course relies on a lot of questions and answers. You're going to be hearing, you're going to be asked many questions, and you're going to need to answer those questions as quickly as possible with zero fear. It's quite interesting actually as well that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described his friends, he negated the possibility of fear from his friends. He said, La khawfun ala inna awliya Allahi la khawfun alayhim wa la hum yahzanun. He said, indeed, as for friends of God, they have zero fear and they shall not grieve. So Allah negated fear from his friends, which shows that, you know, not having fear when it comes to learning is it's something which it's something which is praiseworthy. Of course, the fear related in this about God's friends are fear in regards to fear about the hereafter. So the next tool that that would also be really, really helpful when it comes to, you know, being successful in learning this course is repetition. You need to be comfortable with repeating things over and over again until your brain manages to understand how the structure is, how it works. You need to repeat whenever you memorize any new word, you need to repeat it often in different contexts so that your brain learns these words through repetition. The Arabs say bitikrari yu'allam al-himaru, right? Bitikrari yu'allam al-himaru, that with repetition, even a donkey can be taught, right? So don't be afraid to repeat things. Whenever you're asked a question, don't be afraid to say it and repeat the same answer again. Whenever you learn a new word, repeat it often until it becomes part and parcel of you. Repeat it 5 to 10 times. Write it down 5 to 10 times. So repetition is something that's really good when it comes to learning and memorizing. And finally, any language, or to be successful in almost anything, you need to be consistent in that thing. So you need to regularly commit to exposing yourself to the Arabic language daily, memorizing new words daily, learning something in Arabic and reading something in Arabic daily. Once you take on this course, it's not just a 6-month course for you. It's a path. It's a continuous path to continuous learning and improvement. I've been teaching Arabic for 15 years. I still learn and open something in Arabic daily. So you should also try to be consistent in learning this language. The Arabs, they say khairul karama al-istiqama. Khairul karama al-istiqama. The best of miracles that you can see, the best of miracles or the best manifestation of a high spiritual state is consistency, right? So when you see someone that's consistent in, for example, worship or in good actions, it shows that person has that state as a permanent state, as a maqam. So when it comes to learning the Arabic language, you should consistently learn something daily. You should consistently learn new words. You should consistently read something in Arabic on a daily basis, even though for this course, we require 2 to 3 hours per week, which we're going to get to very soon. But you should still, the more you put in this, in learning new vocabulary and in using Arabic daily or reading Arabic daily, the better your progress will be. So as to how we do this course and what we do, we have split it into 2 sections, immersion and excursion. By immersion is the weekly courses, weekly modules that you have, which last for about 6 months. And per week, we expect you to immerse yourself for between 2 to 3 hours as a minimum. The first session will involve you watching some of the videos, and once you watch the videos, then we have 1 hour of immersion, optional immersion, in the weekend, whereby we then practice what you've learned. But in the absence of the 1 hour immersion, for example, you can actually send a voice note of your recording, so that we can just check, so that you can send a voice note of what you've watched, and practicing some of the sentences that you learned in the session. So you would say things like, هذا بيت, this is a house. هذا البيت جميل, this house is beautiful. Say it in English and in Arabic, so it gives your teacher the opportunity to just monitor your progress. And of course, from the time you register, you should make a daily habit of memorizing 5 to 10 new words. If you do this, If you memorize 10 words a day, by the time you get to 3 months, you would have memorized over 900 words. That will be amazing, to be able to do. Okay, so make it a habit of memorizing 5 to 10 words daily. Use these words in different contexts. You can even use them with your local language just to make sure you memorize it. Of course, use them in Arabic sentences as well, to ensure that you can understand them and you use them in different contexts, and that helps you to memorize. Now, this immersion over the 5 to 6 months of immersion, you will actually learn enough Arabic in that time to be able to use the language very well and to be able to express yourself quite well. Now, of course, what we then do afterwards is that we then take you on an excursion to a nice location for 2 weeks. And in those 2 weeks, the idea and the aim of those 2 weeks is to go through so much Arabic that at the end of the 2 weeks, using Arabic language is second nature to you. We'll be doing about 4 to 6 hours of Arabic daily. We'll have morning sessions from 9 o'clock till 1 p.m. and then evening session for an hour. The morning sessions, we have about 14 different themes with 50 different words per theme, where we just practice with different sentences and different constructions per theme, so that you can use the language, and also, of course, you can memorize and know a lot of the vocabulary which you've been memorizing in the months before the course, before the trip. Then, of course, in the evenings, we have a 1 hour session where everybody starts with a story per day. So on the first day, you'll be telling a story of 5 sentences in Arabic, which should be quite straightforward. And then you increase by 5 sentences every day, so that by the end of the 2 weeks, when you give your presentation in Arabic, you're able to basically give a presentation in Arabic of over 60 sentences. So that we've done that already so far in places like Fez and in places like Dakar. We hope to do this in more places over the next few years, inshallah. And the results has been phenomenal. And that's why we strongly encourage our students to do both the immersion and the excursion, because in doing that, by the end of the 6 months, you will have a very strong foundation in the Arabic language, and you will be able to use the Arabic language over a number of topics and over a number of different contexts. So yes, that's what we do, and that's how we do it. If you have any further questions, please contact us at apply@studyarabicinafrica.com, and we will be very glad to answer any of your questions that you may have. I hope you found this session useful. I hope you found it beneficial. Then once you finish this, the next session will be you essentially starting the immersion courses straight away. So thank you so much for your time, and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.